Let's go.
Oh boy, what is up, everybody?
How's
How is everyone going? All right, all right, all right. We got the crowd coming in hot and strong. Welcome on, everyone. We're here in for another beautiful office hours where we've got some very special guests. We've got Kellen. I got Ilya. Got Ilya right. I spelled it right. I pronounced it right, hopefully. Yes. We're going to be talking all sorts of exciting things LinkedIn. We're going to be talking all sorts of exciting things outbound. And we're going to be talking about how to exactly sell on LinkedIn because I think everyone just talks about it and says, yeah, just use LinkedIn and it works out. But I've seen some of the people who use LinkedIn and it does not work out because they do not know what they're doing, right? So that is something we need to focus on this beautiful event that we've got for the next few moments with all of you over here. Cool. So before we kick off, why should you listen to the squares over here and what they have to offer? Um, well, I love to introduce Ilya and Kellen. We'll start off with Ilya, exactly what he does. And if I'm pronouncing your name wrong after saying it so many times, then that's on me. Firstly, your background is mint. Ilya's led more than 500 HeyReach demos. If those of you don't know what
Oh, you got muted, bro.
Yeah, you
My
got
bad.
muted.
My bad. Yeah,
Oh,
HeyReach is one of the best performing LinkedIn automation platforms in the world right now. You get unlimited LinkedIn profiles to add into the account, so it's not seat-based anymore. A lot of people love HeyReach. Like D-Lab from Kellen loves HeyReach, and Kellen we'll get into in a second. But yeah, he loves giving straight hands-on knowledge about LinkedIn outbound, how to set up campaign logic, and exactly what works at scale. That's the more important part. Um, to be honest, I think of a small. Ooh, small. Oh, my voice is cracking. My apologies. Give me a second.
It came clear for me for what it's worth.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Cool. Um, and for what it's worth, I think he actually understands the mechanics behind how to grow and do outbound campaigns as well as he does, right? I mean, proof is in the pudding. He scaled HeyReach, so he can go ahead and scale or help scale your business. And now we got Kellen, one of the best people on planet Earth. He also runs Clay's community, one of the largest ones. It's called GTM Cafe Community. I don't know if it's Clay oriented anymore, but he is a proud father. He's a family man, and he's the founder of the D Lab, one of customers of Smartlead that we have been very grateful to work with for a long time. Kellen has is one of the few agencies that we can talk about proudly because his results have been consistent. People speak about it, and no one has anything bad to say, and they only have good things to say, which is a win for us. Cool. And every Friday, he welcomes a community at the GTM Cafe where he becomes a bit of a heartbeat of the space of consistency, generosity, and honesty. A lot of GTM conversations. I want to own up for the fact that I have not been the most proactive in the community, but from everyone I have known, spoken to, and see, you should join it. He knows what he's doing there, and he's on the floor speaking about all the cool stuff. Now, we're going to jump into this over here. We're going to go into the questions and conversations that I think Ilya and Kellen want to go into. And by the way, both of you can jump in at any point in time. And everyone who's on the comment section, before we jump into this, I've been trying to do this more recently. Drop in the comments where in the world you're from and what exactly is dinner time where you live. Like for example, I'm in Sydney, but dinner time for me is about 4:30 in the morning because I figured out that I actually my body clock's in Greenland is the best that I can drive over here. Dinner time now. Okay. What is dinner time now? Give me that 6 p.m. Right. I know Southeast Asians will have like a really late dinner. I know people from Europe will have relatively early dinners. The US is I think a good healthy 7:30, which is good. Oh no, we got 7 p.m. Germany is 8. Okay, didn't that 8:37 p.m. All right. Lovely. Let's keep it
2:37.
going.
You
Yeah.
got a
We got
timer, he
some
knows.
I know, right? Cool. Now, before I start just yapping on, is Ilya, Kellen, do you want to jump in to talk about anything, or yeah, how do you want to take this?
I'd basically do a quick intro if Kellen
Sure.
doesn't mind. Kellen can follow, obviously. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us in these working hours. Huge Smart Lead fan here, like God knows from when. Thank you for pronouncing my name properly because if I had $1 for every time somebody said Ilija, I'd probably be a millionaire. So yeah. Cool. For everyone in the audience, my name is Ilija. Don't even try to pronounce my last name. Your desk will start floating. I'm basically with the HeyReach team, currently serving as the CRO from day zero. Like imagine the days of all the meetings on a broken product that I've did, and happily, like it was not that a lot. But throughout this period of time, I've conducted more than 2,000 demo products. I basically integrated well into the market. I've seen successful agencies, I've seen unsuccessful agencies, and people doing kick-ass jobs with outbound LinkedIn campaigns, and people doing poorly. But long story short, throughout this workshop, I want to educate you about the best practices, what you should do, what you should focus on, and what you should avoid at all costs. Again, pleasure to be here, and let's dive into it. Kellen?
Yeah, amazing. So V, if it works, I have like a probably 10-15 minute presentation, and then I think
Yes,
Ilya
yes,
has some like
yes,
demo stuff.
yes,
Cool, cool, cool,
yes,
cool.
yes.
Sweet.
Because
So
I went through the format that we've got. I was like, crap, how am I gonna get these guys entertained for the
no, no
next
worries.
hour?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, let's go for it.
yeah. I promise we all orchestrate revenue systems better than webinar, like who's doing what
Uh,
exactly. But
let's go
we're
for
all
it.
here. So, anyways, quickest intro ever, hopefully. My name's Kellen Caseber. I've been doing creative outbound stuff literally my entire career. Essentially, every dollar I've ever made in sales has come from like an outbound centric environment. I was an SDR in cybersecurity. I was an AE in like HR operational tech. I've been head of sales in a pre-product company. Like Ilya just described, we never got out of the demo broken phase, honestly, dude. So, but that's where message market fit actually came from, was we didn't have a product. And so there was no product market fit. And so the idea of like what we're saying, that's the term I used back then. Um, After the startup, I joined a business that used to actually be owned by Joey Gilkey, who owns TitanX now. So he used to run like a revenue consultancy where we do like fractional VP sales. And so we'd come build 0 to 1 outbound motions. We'd help hire reps, set up the tech stack, and kind of do like this coaching motion. I left that, started my business just about 3 years ago, 2 years, 11 months. So excited to hit 3 years for the Deal Lab. We hit 7 figures of revenue last year, which is sick, big milestone everyone, aims at. We're a Smartlead and HeyReach expert partner. They're definitely my two favorite companies to be partners with. Just love them. Student of the game myself, literally forever. Like I love this stuff, and like V said, I have a free Slack community, gtmcafe.com. We do like Wednesday and Friday open group calls, tons of stuff going on. Lots of my competitors, lots of software companies, lots of reps in there. So pretty much any skill set, anyone can join, have a good time. Um, let's see if I could get the thing moving. All right, cool. So section one, the frame, right? Setting the frame to this conversation. Multi-channel doesn't actually create conversion, right? It increases the odds of being in the right moment. And so kind of like V was saying, like multi-channel isn't just like add another channel and magically everything's fixed. That's not what this is. So conversion itself actually also only happens in a moment, right? It doesn't happen in campaign creation. We have these concepts in our head, but for each individual person, they're getting like a message or a series of messages, and there's going to be this moment where you're either going to hook them and get them to the next step, or you're not, right? And so channels change the context of that moment, but it doesn't change whether the buyer wants your product. It doesn't change, product market fit, message market fit. Like the only thing is some advantage to the moment. If they don't see your message, they don't perceive it, right? And so most outbound actually lives here. A lot of people have this idea of like spamming your TAM and hitting people with too much messages, but the most likely outcome of every single outbound message is just not perceived. They don't see it, they don't know you sent it. If you sent the same thing literally 20 minutes later, they're not even going to know that. Right? And so it's really important to remember that like actually just catching their attention is pretty much the number one first goal in a lot of this stuff. So good outbound is putting like the right message, in the right room at the right time. So it's a few different, the message is up for interpretation, the right room or channel is up for interpretation, and then the timing of when we hit each of these is up for interpretation. So psychology of this cold outbound stuff, right? It's interruption marketing. Like I said, we're trying to interrupt the moment. So people decide how they feel before they decide how they think about something, right? The second they see, if they do perceive a message, they're going to have a sentiment before they actually have like a logical breakdown. It happens instantaneously, right? And so our first job isn't actually persuading someone to get a yes and be desirable. It's actually avoiding objections and landmines, essentially not losing them before they even mentally process what you just said to them. So this guy Chet Holmes, he made this like buyer awareness pyramid, right? Not everyone's ready to buy. Most outbound fails because it's kind of like geared towards people who are ready to buy. This is what the pyramid looks like. Essentially, the top 3% is like buying now, they're coming inbound. 7% is open to buying. So the whole top 10% is problem aware and solution aware. They're already thinking about it, right? They have context to like, LinkedIn automation tools as an example. The next third of the market essentially is not thinking about it at all. So it means they're focused elsewhere, and so they're not rejecting you preemptively. They just aren't considering you, right? Then the next third is basically they have negative attitude. They believe that they're not interested, and then the last third, like quote unquote, knows, right? And so a lot of outbound is geared towards this top 10% that's kind of like ready to convert. And if you learn to message to the next bracket, you actually 4x the size of like your reachable market that you can feasibly get into a conversation. Oops. Yeah, so like I said, top 10% problem solution aware. They have an informed opinion. The clarity, speed, and directness in your messaging is what's going to resonate with those people best. But these other people, they're focused elsewhere. And so openness comes from like pattern interrupt first and foremost, and then disrupting status quo thinking. So the different message brackets, right, like or awareness brackets, we message to them differently. All right, so now let's talk about the actual channels, what we're here for. Email and LinkedIn, like we said, they're different rooms. So email is anonymous by default. Like you're just a message, right? Literally, and if anyone knows Amelia Taylor, you've probably gotten an email from an Amelia Taylor recently. If you don't, that's fine. But she like, and she, it's not her, but someone's using her name. And so even a name that we all know and a lot of people immediately associate with her, you don't read it like Amelia typed this out, right? It doesn't matter. So you don't get the benefit of kind of like familiarity and closeness. Right. And so in order to land, the email itself needs to kind of tell the whole story, right? Like they're going to open it up, they're going to look at it, they're going to perceive this real quick, and they're going to make a decision solely off of that message, right? LinkedIn is different because it's social, it feels relational and closer. And so it feels kind of like we belong in the same room, right? It's a little awkward almost to ignore someone, right? If I like walked up to Ilija and I was like, "Hey Ilija, how are you doing today?" And he just like looked at me with didn't react to be super bizarre in person. People wouldn't do that, right? They'll happily do that with your cold email. So LinkedIn is a lot less actually about pitching. I don't need the whole story. I don't need to get into like, here's who you are, here's what I think's going on, here's what you could do next. The do next thing we don't even need to touch. It's really focused on opening these conversations and getting like a reciprocal conversation going, right? If they engage with you basically at all on LinkedIn, it's much, much, much more likely that they'll continue to engage, right? Which isn't true with email. With email, we need speed to lead. We need to convert that quick while they're still in the inbox. This is very different. Um, I got ahead of myself. Yeah. So LinkedIn, basically, they're responding because they probably perceive you to be like a credible person to engage with, essentially. So let's talk about scale versus closeness, right? Pros and cons. So email generally gives scale. Email really decouples like if you have a market of a million contacts, you could hit all of those people in a day feasibly with email. That's not going to be what we do with LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, again, is closeness, right? It's near, it's familiar. And so it generally limits volume, right? Again, HeyReach helps us with that in a lot of ways, but as a platform, fundamentally, it limits the amount of volume we can do. And a big part of that is they're trying to protect their idea of this credibility and this nearness with people on the product. So again, email skills without the social context, interweaving them is how we can still hit the scale in the context of our market, like how much of our market we want to reach, but also benefit from this like nearness of LinkedIn, right? And so why does like the naive approach to this fail? Most teams, they take the same leads at literally the same moment with the same copy, they load them into like the two channels, right? And they're like, we put them in HeyReach, we put them in Smartlead, like that's multi-channel, right? And it's not orchestration. It literally is just duplicating, right? It's just doing the same thing in two different places. It's 1 + 1 = 1.5, right? You're not even getting the sum of its parts. And so unified outbound isn't just like more touches. It's not like add them to another thing, right? It's actually better decision making about who goes where and why, right? And so first, I believe segmentation happens, right? This is kind of the core. This is definitely like my business, the Deal Lab. This is like strong, Deal Lab stuff, but I believe this to just be a truth to the market as well. Good outbound starts with the segmentation. Who are we actually reaching out to and why, right? And so there's two generally kinds of fit, the way I think of it. We have static fit, which is like who they are, right? What kind of product they are, like relatively headcount, some of like the industries they serve, things that aren't going to change too much. And then we have dynamic fit, which is like why now, right? That might be posting behaviors, it might be engagement behaviors, it might be like product launch cycles. This one actually also could be hiring. So even though the other one could be headcount, this could be hiring. And so signals, triggers, timing, all of that sort of stuff changes how we route these people. Value per segment determines the value per channel as well, right? Because there might be people that you can get like hyper reachable via LinkedIn. I bet if you do HeyReach campaigns to like GTM engineer founders of like small agencies, you can probably get lots of responsiveness. I bet that's not like the highest MRR acquisition for software companies. Um, and so we want to be intelligent about like not only what is like the competitive landscape, but what is like the value in these different pockets. Right. And so the unified patterns, I wanted to share some samples of basically, and we'll get into in a second, like some examples of how I see the two literally weave together. And then Ilya is going to have some like samples. Um, so these are the patterns, right? So multi-channel doesn't force a conversion, it increases conversions in the right moments, right? So if email, we have scale and story. LinkedIn, again, we have closeness and like what I will call conversion momentum is how I use it a lot of the time. Using the channels where they're strongest is how we win. Here's a couple patterns of how we do this, set this up. Like these are like literal client strategies, essentially. So number one, LinkedIn follows any reply, even a no. This is a really common one that I love, right? And so basically, when you get a reply on email of any type, you've unlocked some sort of attention and impression. We will often just auto connect with those people with a nice message. It's like, hey, Vibov, appreciate the email and reply. Took you out of the sequence. Wanted to connect here, so in the future we can stay connected, right? Something like that. You're gonna have extremely high connect requests or like acceptance, and that person's gonna be very open in the future to talk to you again, right? And so that's a way that we can basically turn a higher percentage of the email replies we get if you only ran email into future meetings, right? These people will be high conversion 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the line. And if you only ran email, you probably just leave those be. I've seen those systems. All right. Pattern B, email follows LinkedIn accepts, right? With no DM replies. So let's say that I send a connection request to Steve. I see him under Vibov, so I'm using him as my example. And he accepts it on LinkedIn. I'm like, Steve, I want to talk to you about what the Deal Lab does, blah, blah, blah. And I pitch at him and he ignores me because it was a terrible message. Following up to those people with emails and being like, hey, we connected on LinkedIn, da, 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 whatever, and basically continuing it there will get you more conversations, right? And so why it works, once we have the social permission, we can actually kind of get into like where they really sit and process their thinking, right? I know I don't inbox zero LinkedIn as well as I do email. And so the outcome becomes a higher percentage of our accepted connects actually become replies. And so if I was just running HeyReach and not Smartlead in tandem, I would lose out potentially on some of these people for that reason as well, right? Pattern C, LinkedIn connects to top email targets that don't reply, right? So again, if I have a list of 10,000 contacts that I send emails to, and basically, let's say that, I send to 10,000, let's say I get like 500 replies. So now I have 9,500 people that didn't reply to email. I might take those 9,500 contacts, run them through a Clay table to score them for which ones are the top ones, and then take those best ones that I care the most to connect with and enroll them into LinkedIn campaigns, right? And so that what it basically shows is like a commitment to connecting with that person, right? The copy might be like, Vibov, I sent you some emails, never heard back, was hoping to connect here and ask you a quick question, right? And again, the nearness of that's going to make it feel like they're more. First of all, it passes the like this isn't just pure automation test, and two, it's going to feel like okay, this guy's going through the effort. I should probably, people are going to be more open to responding. And so here, the outcome is we have a higher reply rate in our ideal market versus if we only emailed these people. So again, a lot of this has to do with kind of thoroughness of conversion rather than like just tactical shortcuts to everything working magically. Um, and then the last one, and this actually probably I maybe should have put this first because I think this is like the first use case. If you're running cold email and you want to add LinkedIn in, would just be to like take your list, that 10,000, take the top 1,000 and enroll those into LinkedIn campaigns for like the teams you work with. Right. And so we do a lot of like cold email campaigns where we might get hired by like a CMO to like provide lead flow. But if they have 20 reps on their team, we can very easily take their best targets, automate the connection requests to them, flag the accepted connects in like a Slack channel with like a little research brief and let those reps go do stuff. Right. And for anyone in here who's like an agency owner, that's a way you can get integrated with your clients and not just be like all that Kellen does is send emails and sometimes meetings show up, but actually help just the entire go-to-market motion and sort of like really get into that orchestration type stuff. And so the idea here is like if we believe someone is already in that top 10%, right, problem aware, solution aware, then we can actually basically pitch at them pretty directly, and that's okay. Right. And so if you have some sort of signal that's like, hey, I saw you're hiring for this role. It looks like they're going to be doing these types of things, wondering if something like, XYZ would be helpful as part of their stack. So what this creates is higher conversion per touch, fewer touches needed to reach a meeting potentially. Okay, so the system, I have two short sections and we're going to kick it to Ilya. Unified outbound, right? Like I've been saying, is a system itself. We need to tune the system, right? So we first come up with our ideas and we set it up, we build it. We execute what we build, we allow it to happen. We learn from the outcomes, right? We commit to executing what we built. We aren't in a perennial like tinkering mode, in my opinion. You'll get better outcomes. And then we tune again, right? Based on what we see. So that's simple as it's just an iterative process, right? So to close out my little presentation, I will share the slides after. Email scales relevance generally is the way I think of it. LinkedIn scales trust, right? We get benefit from more trust. Unified outbound sequences with both with purpose helps us go book more meetings. Thank you, everybody. There's my LinkedIn, but you guys probably have it. And like I said, Ilya is going to go through a demo, and I want to share as much time for like questions and stuff. That's why I kind of tried to like rip through that. So I know there's a bunch of questions coming in here. But yeah, thank you.
Dude, you are like Chat GPT explaining outbound in 15 minutes.
Boom.
Congratulations, man. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
We, to be respectful of everyone's time, if you have anything to add,
No,
unless,
I think that there was so much that was just thrown at me, yeah,
yeah,
but so much that was relevant. I loved it. You did such a
yeah.
great job. Uh, I've got a lot of questions to ask, but what we'll do is, firstly, everyone's loving your lighting, and Kellen, your pot seems to be quite popular as well. But we'll jump into some questions. We'll take about 3 to 4 questions. Then we'll jump into Ilya's part, and then we'll take 3, 4 questions, and then we'll have the end of the event in a couple minutes where people can drop in any questions as well if they have, right? So now with that being said, the one of the questions that have come through over here was when you're going to go ahead and reach out to customers. I think it was you covered it in parallel with respect to not doing a multi-channel experience that's dot to dot the same thing. What would be your experience with respect to ensuring that you actually have that the persona match happening? Does it really matter when you're doing outbound with a certain mailbox versus a not like a different I guess LinkedIn profile, and
Mhm.
how do you sort of beat yourself through or power through the limitations that LinkedIn has?
Yeah. And so you're saying like essentially just making sure we know who, like what we usually do would be set up a different sequence per
Okay,
rep, essentially. And so it's like I'd have the Ilya sequence, the Kellen sequence, the Vibob sequence. And if we're doing like East Central West territories as an
got it,
example,
got it,
something like that, usually. Ilya,
got
is
it.
that how you guys generally recommend it, or do you guys see other versions of how people do
Absolutely,
it?
man. You have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
tailor
cool.
made for everyone's needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And I guess it's unlimited seats, then that becomes easy to sort of balance that in. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. It's a fair question. I think I'm interested to know this because I've got counterpoints to this that I've heard. Which is the best according to you? Maybe it's per persona, Kellen. A connection with a note, connection with a quick opener, like, hey, I have a question, are you available? Or connection, then a customized message directly.
My belief, so I think of it as like you want to create like an open loop, right? So it's essentially like
Mm,
to me, the apex would be like you have some sort of near feeling reasoning, and then you allude to a question, but you don't give it to them. So if I was like, like when I was a rep, I used to like when I was a rep and I just started, I was connected with these cybersecurity guys. I didn't know anything about anything, and all I do is just be like, Vibov, see you're connected to like Alexander Blanc at blank. Um, he's come to a few of our events. Had a quick question for you, hoping to connect, right? Something like that. And I try to make it feel like very like kind of warm and like chipper. And I really try to push away from like this is a sales pitch on LinkedIn because I believe it's kind of like again, like if you're standing at like a bus stop and someone's like, "Hey, can I ask you something?" No one's
yeah,
just ignoring
yeah,
them, So it's like if people are ignoring you, it basically means you're signaling something that's like, "I am here to be self-serving and I don't care about you and I'm trying to like take things from you." So that's how I do it. But Ilya, what do you guys see? You guys have bigger data sets.
Oh, bro, we did an analysis of 3 million connection requests being sent out across the customer base. What we've concluded is that the blank connection requests get on average 27% acceptance rate, while on the other end, the personalized ones usually get 22%. But there is a clear differentiator. Unless, like, out of the ones which were personalized, the ones which were generic, something like add me to your professional network. If you're thinking about that, just don't do it. Like, just go with blank. Like, don't do it. But the hyper personalized ones, such as this person sent me your way, or we have this thing in common, or this piqued my interest, that's why I'm reaching out, that actually got 45 to 55% acceptance rate depending on the account quality. So unless like the outcome is that unless you are certain at a high scale with a hyper personalization on a relevant lead list, do a personalization. If you are targeting more broadly, then stick to a blank one.
Yeah. Yeah. And we like honestly, I would say more of our campaigns that we set up in HeyReach are blank connect request to like ask a question as like the bump once they accept it, than is because it's just less common to have that like really, really, really tight familiarity. And honestly, if we really know that exists, we'll often just peel that off to reps to just one the thing anyways. Because it's like if they just recorded like a Loom video and sent it to that person or something, that would bang too.
That's a perfect call. I'll run into the second question. Someone's got some nice humor over there that I'm gonna jump across, which is Kellen, how do you get your hair so nice at 7 a.m.? And they're
I
asking
know.
how I got my hair so nice. Okay, good one.
Yeah, that's a
But
good question, dude.
second question for you is how do you intertwine content into all of this? I think that's a great question, right? Like, do, does it work if you have a dead LinkedIn profile? Like you're not active, you don't post, you're a bit of an introvert. I think Ilya sort of
Not as
nailed it.
well.
Okay,
Ilya will know this
perfect.
better because so like for us for clients, right? We do it kind of two ways, right? Sometimes we're running like client accounts out of HeyReach, and sometimes we're using like essentially like hiring people to use their accounts, right? And so definitely you're gonna get better. It's like if someone's like from the industry, they've been around forever, they post content, like they're again, that's where that nearness feels great. Like I go connect with people.
100%.
I don't send messages usually because I just kind of assume like someone's probably gonna accept mine because we're gonna have so many familiar ones.
I mean,
100%.
listen, it's very simple, right? Your LinkedIn profile is your home. And would you invite someone at home if it was a mess? No. Why would you invite them to your LinkedIn profile then? Fix it
Yeah.
up. Nice, decent picture, nice background picture, couple of lines in the about section, work experience, and a LinkedIn or two LinkedIn posts, essentially for the ICP that you're targeting. That's all you need, really.
Fair play.
Yeah.
I will have another parallel question, but before this, whoever's around here, stick around till the end. Ilya's got a very cool, nice little giveaway that we're giving through. Unless you don't, in which case I've thrown you on the spot, Ilya, sorry. But stick around, we'll announce that. Ilya will announce it in a quick moment himself as well. Before we go into the next segment, because there's tons of questions that have come through, so don't worry, if you've asked a question, we'll try our best to get them answered, but we'll get Ilya a moment to jump into his spot as well. Before that, I did have a question on what you just said, Ilya. In a situation you're selling to multiple ICPs, this is maybe a question for me. Then how does that principle of content to match the outcome approach yourself? Because like with email, you can have 10,000 mails, all 10,000 different contact, like, different personas and what you're trying to say. With LinkedIn, if I've got a profile, or maybe there's 3, 4 profiles, but I'm trying to sell to 3 different personas, then is the definition over here that I need to create content very strategically so that it appeals to all 3 masses. And then that's sort of my signal to if you get what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. LinkedIn has two sections, posts and featured posts, right? So basically, for each ICP that you're targeting, my best advice is to create two LinkedIn posts. I mean, you are not there for the likes, you are not there for the engagement, you are there for the social proof, right? So I'm guessing at this period of time, you will have a prioritization of one ICP over another. So this is where you play around. You basically publish all posts, but you put them as featured only the ones that have priority on the ICP. Meaning, if you're running like a SaaS founders campaign, that the featured post should be about SaaS founders. And if you're changing the campaign or the outreach for the period of time, just change the featured posts. And that's pretty much it. That's how you resolve it.
I think that's fair. Cool. Um, I'm going to be a bit selfish over here and ask another question that someone has had. The question over here was around um, how do you embed or how you drop in video content into the outreach? I think this might even come with the whole personalized message that you send on LinkedIn, because clearly earlier you mentioned that personalized messages have a lot of response
Mhm.
rates, I mean, connection
Yeah.
approval rates. Do you sort of connection, boom, here's a Loom video, or do you send a Loom video in the connection itself? Because sometimes when I get the connection request with the link, I actually don't even click on it because it feels like
Never.
the subject line with buy my crypto type of conversation.
Yeah.
But I really like Kellen's point of making sure the loop can always be left open. In a situation they accept it but they don't respond back, it shouldn't look like bump or follow up, but it should naturally lead in, hey, thanks for accepting. What I said is true. I think you're great at what you do, and I wanted to learn X, Y, Z. So where does video fall into this, or we shouldn't consider it?
Video, it's basically pattern interruption, right? So basically, in the form of a communication on LinkedIn, you have three ways. That's the textual one, the video one, and the voice notes, right? Unless you are great on video, basically you know how to record yourself in 30 seconds to explain everything why you have reached out. I mean, do the video, and basically it will be sent through the inbox. And I typically advise a video to be sent after the second message. The reason why I'm sending that, unless you are a OnlyFans module and you basically want to share some videos, then send it into the first message. But you're not. You're a business to business person and you basically want to establish a decent business communication. It doesn't make sense, right? So keep it for the third video, for the third message, and use it as a pattern interruption because most of the people will actually send texts only. So
Do
that's
you,
it.
real
Excellent.
quick, do you guys still, so I don't know if reps still do this, but I used to love doing Loom videos, taking their homepage, doing
Ah,
inspect
yeah.
element
Yeah,
over the
yeah,
top
Changing
of
it.
it
Yeah.
and changing the copy and saying, "Hey, Ilya, had a quick question for you," or whatever. Because then if you send that, if they,
it's
if it
pattern
like
interruption.
preview loads, then they'll see their own website. So then they're gonna see like their colors, they're gonna see their brand. It's gonna stand out subconsciously because they've seen that a bajillion times, and now it has different phrasing. So that was one of the things that like when we were reps, that was like especially like in the low automation days, I would sit there and like 30 of those a day.
Yeah.
That was the quota hitter.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, it makes sense. Everything that interrupts a pattern between like what am I daily receiving versus this is a one-off thing that I'm receiving with a slight statistical chance, that actually brings attention, right? And the same goes for the voice notes. Oh, we were doing one workshop and basically we were discussing the same subject, like between email, LinkedIn, cold calling, and stuff like that. Which channel would you prioritize? And I'm like, for what purpose? Well, for the open rate. Well, if it's an open rate, then I would send them like envelopes on their home address. That's a
Yeah,
100% pattern interruption. Nobody sends them any messages there. You're the first one. That's a 100% open rate. And now you're thinking, well, cool. Am I doing this for the open rate or for the business? So you see my point? Now,
totally.
whole point being everything that interrupts a pattern is great, but if you know how to do it properly. If you don't, then you are risking the chance of doing business just because you did a lousy job inside of the distribution of the message that you initially wanted to send.
I
So yeah.
strongly agree, dude. I love I call it hollow operators. I tell people
Yeah.
I don't believe in the idea of the hollow operator. Like there's not going to be the copy pasters that like don't understand this. They don't own the like underlying knowledge, but are just doing tactics and winning. Like those people aren't going to win. And I think, like you said, it's like you need to have this like deeper understanding. When you do, it just opens the world up. Because like you said, you can just sit there and riff on like, okay, how do I overcome this? How do I overcome this? How do I do something cheeky against this? And that type of stuff.
Yes. Cool.
That's a perfect call. All right. Oh yeah, we're gonna jump into your part.
Well,
Let's go straight into this.
guys, listen, everyone, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. For everyone, basically, first time touching hands on LinkedIn outbound, this is what you have to remember. And if you have to take out anything out of this workshop, this will be it, right? Kellen, you basically have a 0.1% successful agents in this world on this workshop, and basically he's telling the same thing. Focus on the people that matter and they're there for the business, like those 10%. Now, if you take that into perception and you take the LinkedIn limits into perception, then you have to know that obviously you cannot go this above and beyond like you can do on over email. I mean, you can, but it will become hell of expensive. So just be aware of that. So basically focus on the people that matter the most. Be respectful, clean up your profile. Is that not, it's not much to ask, really. And focus on the ones that actually just make sense to continue this business and to actually move forward and just pay attention to that. Now, I have a logic that says like, because I get this question a lot, hey, well, listen, what should I start first, whether it's email or LinkedIn? And I'm like, well, it really depends on your TAM. If your TAM is 10K and above companies and people that you have to reach out, you have to start with email, right? The reason being is because it's cost effective, you can do it fast. Smartlead will take care to land in the primary inbox, job done, right? But that is not it, and I'm going to talk about it in a bit. But if your TAM is pretty like short, meaning you don't have that many people, or you've spent so many credits into hyper relevance, hyper personalization, so on and so forth, you have to start with LinkedIn. The reason being is because LinkedIn will get more responses because they have a inbuilt chat and it's a social platform. And as long as you have a cool profile, like that will do the job essentially. But then again, you are not really going to be worried, is this thing going to be seen, right? This thing is going to be seen. And the reason why we've pushed into this integration, and obviously it made sense for us, first, because they are an awesome tool. Second is because it will bring value, because isolated channels do not work as they used to. That goes for LinkedIn, that goes for email. That's the harsh truth. Not the harsh truth, but that's where we all live in. So if that makes sense, then you have to have LinkedIn first, then follow up with email. So this is a practical example from the Smartlead side of things, because they did like an amazing job with the agents of connectivity between two tools. And I'm going to just basically explain in a bunch of examples like when this makes sense. So sharing my screen real quick. I'll not bother you a lot. So yeah, we're good. You guys see my screen? Yo, a lot of,
Yes.
yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
So in Smartlead, you can find the agents. Awesome job, V. Amazing. So if you were running a campaign on a lot of prospects with a lot of accounts and so on and so forth, you basically will have people who responded, positive, negative, whatever it is. But then again, on the positive side of things, everyone sees that drop off between I got a positive reply, but it was a no-show. So basically, to mitigate on that, you can just send them from a positive response on Smartlead to an actual HeyReach campaign for LinkedIn. It's very easy to set it up. Obviously, you can just create an agent. I will not drag you through it, but essentially it will look something like this. So it will fetch automatically. Every time the event happens, it will be pushed to a HeyReach campaign. Second example would be, let's say that when you are basically have created an awful lot of time to actually create a decent and a great lead list, but then again, like, I don't know, your email validation actually didn't do the job and you basically have a bounced email. So instead of just wasting all of those credits and all of that money spent, you can just, on every bounced lead from any campaign, you can push them to a HeyReach campaign. Same example follows. Now, I'm no Smartlead expert, although I understand the use cases. I'm going to jump into the LinkedIn part real quick. So basically on the LinkedIn part, let's say that you are starting a campaign with either limited TAM, or you want to make a more personalized approach for yourself or for your clients, if you're managing clients' accounts and so on and so forth. This is how a potential campaign, a combination of both, will essentially look like. So first things first, you have to connect an account. I'm not going to skip the theoretical and the technical part. Let's say that you're starting off a campaign. You can have an exclusion if it was ever a message. It will become important later. One thing that we've enabled all users was essentially the account rotation, something that Smartlead actually had. We just replicated that for LinkedIn, and we said, well, LinkedIn has limits, and the only way to do more on LinkedIn would be with more senders. The same goes for Google, for instance. That's why we all create multiple inboxes. So in this case, these accounts will do account rotation, and they will split the audience between themselves automatically. So you don't have to worry about CSV and breaking lists. That's what we did. Now, once we did that, essentially, this is, and I'm sorry about this, but give me a sec. This is how a zoom out campaign will essentially look like. Just give me a sec. Cool. So the campaign, this is another feature that we've implemented, because obviously if you want to push a person from HeyReach to Smartlead, you need to have an email account. I mean, who would you send the email to if you don't have the recipient's email account? So if you have it, don't use this step. But if you don't have their email, we obviously have this feature to find the email out of a LinkedIn profile. Now, when that happens, now I'm going to focus on the scenario, essentially email found, or you have the email before. Pay attention to this one over here, because we've talked several times throughout this workshop that it's a social platform. So use the profile engagements in combination with the outreach itself. What that means is just play around a little bit with their profile. Do a follow first, like one of the recent posts a day later, and then send a connection request. And as I said, like, a connection request should be blank, because theoretically, unless you know what you're doing and you have the hyper personalization. If you don't, stick to a blank one. Easiest choice will work like a charm. Now, before I continue, the touch points. Now, with this type of setup, you are essentially turning the LinkedIn notifications into touch points, right? And very few people actually understand it. I know that everyone is in a rush to do a business. I know that everyone is in a rush to fill up their pipeline, but this is a game that takes time. So be respectful of it. I mean, you're blending into an ecosystem. That's the end goal. Now, when you send a connection request, you basically, two scenarios will happen. Either you will get accepted or not accepted, right? If you are not accepted after 7 days, what do? Send them to Smartlead because this is your second channel and the message writes itself. Hey, I've tried reaching you on LinkedIn, no luck. That's why I'm basically pinging your inbox over here. I mean, you know how to write it. I'm not the best copywriter. On the right-hand side, 3 hours after acceptance, you will basically send your first LinkedIn message. 3 days later, obviously, if there is a reply, campaign stops. 3 days later, no reply, second message rolls out. Now, this is where things can get interesting. What if on the second message you did not get a reply, or on the third, or on the fourth, whatever? So 3 days later, what we are going to do is we are going to send them to a smart lead campaign, right? And this is like send you a couple of messages over LinkedIn. I guess you basically do not open up your profile that often. And have that in mind. Not every audience is applicable for LinkedIn outreach because people have to log into a specific website, to a specific application to see all of your messages. So if you are there thinking my LinkedIn outreach sucks, but you are targeting plumbers on the East Coast, well, bad story for you. Plumbers are not going to be on LinkedIn, so why bother? So bear that in mind that not on every audience is. There are a couple of practical examples. Shoot me a LinkedIn DM. Happy to help you and advise you on that. But long story short, like don't get obviously frustrated if things don't work because you might just missed up on the audience. Now, add them to Smartlead. This is your best pick. Didn't responded. Now, obviously, it makes sense. And this is where, again, things can get interested. 5 days, 5 hours later, after that, you know for a fact that they received the email. This is where you follow up again on LinkedIn, right? Or do a combination of both, right? It's an endless combination of things that can happen. Obviously, on this workshop, I wanted to just open up the eyes for the audience, like obviously what is possible and what can you do. So shoot your questions into the Q&A and hopefully we will answer them throughout this workshop. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Sweet. Cool. We got a bunch of questions coming through. Well, by the way, Kellen, you've been fabulous. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah,
These are great. Ilya, question for you. I think someone asked the same thing, which is, how does variables and variable transfer work between the two products?
Yes, so basically we import the data when we store the data as custom variables and we send it to Smartlead as custom variables, if I'm not mistaken. But yes,
Correct.
that's pretty much it. It's included.
Got it. Got it. Fair enough. I have a question over here. I think people have raised Clay a lot in this conversation, right? Where does Clay fit in your workflow? Maybe it's an individual question to you, Ilya, and a question to you, Kellen, as well.
I'll start off first. Well, Clay is your data centralization of pretty much your outreach. Like this is where you do the enrichment, the pull up and everything. You know what Clay is all about. So basically after Clay, you have two choices to choose on the channel to basically either do both or do one or do, I mean, you get my point. The key distinguishment between like which channel you should use, as I explained, should be based on the TAM of the quality of the lead list and basically, well, the purpose of the campaign. So if you're representing like a high net worth individual, LinkedIn would make sense to start off with. That's just the business logic. So Clay is the first step, and this is like the second step. That's my point of view.
Fair enough.
yeah,
Fair
basically
enough.
same. The way I would think of it is like what is because someone asked like how to do evergreen, right? And to me, like I think that idea what people often do is they think of this idea of like, okay, where's the signal I subscribe to and like what do I do with it? But I agree that like what we would usually do is take the account list, put it in Clay, set up a bunch of like like say monthly rerun like signal trigger stuff on that table. And then if something flags, send it to a table to find the contacts, and then based on that, like enroll it into campaigns or something like that. So it's the same thing.
Fair play. I think that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Now, I think someone actually went ahead and raised another question. I think it was answered 1 second before we go into it. Actually, I have one for you. Might be relevant to what they've said. What are the 3 common questions people should be asking you in a demo area that you see people not ask you?
3 common questions.
That people should be asking you that they do not.
Wow,
Like rare
that requires a
questions.
whole webinar on its own. I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, so people are not asking about formatting, right? So I
Okay.
typically see this
Mhm.
happening where, I mean, they expect that they will just input 5 paragraphs in a LinkedIn DM and basically have 3 paragraphs per message in a campaign, and they expect that that will happen because they envision it same as email threads. And it's not, it's a chat. So imagine this, like if you send two, three big ass messages, the next time the person actually opens up their browse or their LinkedIn inbox on their mobile phone, it will be a whole blog post. Nobody's going to read that. So formatting is important in terms of like how are you transferring the message. You have to keep it short and sweet. Do you send your friends a paragraphs? No, you don't. You basically send one-liners, two-liner stops. So that's number one. Number two is they do not ask me about obviously the LinkedIn profiles, the quality. So again, aside from what I've explained and why it's important, again, as I said, people will visit that profile. It's not just a carrier of the message. It's a
Mm,
carrier of message that will receive a profile view. So don't forget about
mm,
that.
mm.
And one thing, obviously, to point out to everyone, 500 connections. That's the bare minimum to achieve a solid acceptance rate. Profiles with less than 500 connections typically get 17% acceptance rate, less people accepting, less people being messaged. So that's why prepare your account to get to a 500 in order to execute this. Last but not
Uh,
least, yeah,
mm. No, I'm saying authority signaling is going to be a big part of this. Okay, got
yeah,
it. Understood.
yeah.
Mm.
Final question, how much time am I going to spend in the inbox? This is pretty much a misconception when people are translating from email to LinkedIn and they get buried in the inbox. The reason being is that LinkedIn will generate, I mean, they will spend awful a lot of time, and no AI, BDR, or SDR is not going to do the job. Trust me on that. A lot of people have tried and failed. So do it manually first, then pass it on to an automation. Long story short, the average reply on LinkedIn will be around 20% on every message that you send out. Yes, you will generate a lot of, remember the Kellen funnel, the people in the middle? Most of the people will be there. If you are lucky and you have a good targeting, like obviously you will grab the 10% that you are aiming for, but what happens to the rest of the 20%? And again, remember this, you have to be respectful because at the end of the day, these people are still your first degree connections. So you will
Mm,
expose them
Yeah.
to content, to ads, to whatever you want.
mm,
Inbox management
mm,
is a big thing. Do not underestimate that.
mm,
That's it.
Also think on that point to double tap is like your career is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And like I know there's a lot of people that come in and they're really eager and they're ambitious, like it's good things, like good eagerness, right? And they come in and they try to go really hard. And I just think of it as like you can't force it. You know, like you just you're not gonna be able to like brute force this type of stuff. And it's like if your results aren't there at a smaller sample size, like 10xing it isn't gonna get you there. And you're 10xing like the negative amplification at the same time as whatever like results trickle through. I think that is definitely something that you know, and that's email and LinkedIn for sure. You know, all of this stuff, sales in general, really.
I love how you say that it is a marathon. 100% get you. That makes sense. So I can sort of condense some of your notes over here, if I may. Sort of first principles. Just usually my brain works in simple ways, right? So first principles is just do obvious things. Seems like the general call out over here. Um, you do not go ahead and send them 10 messages that are irrelevant to your profile. You cannot say that you are in sales, but you're selling them, I don't know, cooking recipes or whatever may be the case, right? Your LinkedIn profile, from my understanding, is your validation of the message that you send out. So you tell them that you're the best at sales, and your LinkedIn profile has really shitty content, or your profile's even empty. You don't even have a display picture there. It's not going to work to your benefit. And I guess the other one I can pull out from what you've said is pretty much treat people the way you expect to be treated. Again, it's just very it's when you look at it, it's actually just sales is just first order principle thinking, right? You do not hey, be curious, ask me questions. Do not just I think you use the bus station example in a lot, which is if you're sort of doing a door knocking sales experience and someone opens the door, the second you open the door, if you just go inside and you sell them stuff, it's different. The best door knocking people build a relationship. And I've done door knocking, by the way, long time ago. The trick that I learned, because I had this really really annoying like area manager where he's like, yeah, you need to come out with closing deals. I was like, I will close deals tomorrow, not today, right? Which is the first day is to say hi, hello, talk about what you have to do. And people are, I think, Ilya, you said this, which is when you're doing a pattern interruption, it immediately just gets everyone puzzled and excited at the same time. Because what would happen to me, by the way, I only survived 3 months. I'm not going to pretend like I was the best at it. But what really worked for me was I would go first day, just say hi, hello, this is what we do, what they're doing, just ask questions, and
Yeah.
I would leave. and they would be so baffled at the fact that I have not sat there trying to sell my soul and like get a charity or whatever it is. And the next day I'd come back and I have this whole thing where, hey, remember me? And she's like, yeah, I remember you. And it was so weird. You're the first person who never tried pushing stuff, whatever down my throat. Then I would use different mechanisms around. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you're too comfortable, and you'd start labeling them, saying, I did not know if you're working, or I did not know if you cared. And you're like, no, no, of course I care about this. Of course I care about. Okay, well, cool, buy my shit. So I see LinkedIn, to my perspective, very similar to that, which is you're entering in, so you need to be a bit more cordial. It's not email where you can just say, buy my stuff. I think I wrote about it the other day. It does not work in any format at all. I've seen that happen for me as well. It simply does not work. I have a follow-up question over here that some of them have asked in their own format and manner. And then maybe we can go into the stuff that Ilya, you want to talk through, which is when is when is enough enough on LinkedIn? Maybe that's the question for you, Kellen, as well, because you've done a lot of outbound on your part. When is enough enough on LinkedIn? With email, you can send, I've seen people do 18 sequences. I know it's stupid, but sometimes it works.
Yeah.
Don't ask
Yeah.
me. How does it work on LinkedIn?
Kellen, want to go
So the way
first?
I'll answer how I think about it, because then Ilya
Yeah.
has like the actual numbers, so that way I don't have to follow something so difficult. But my thoughts is like I think of everything as like TAM cycling, right? Like to me, a healthy go-to-market
Mm,
motion is about what percentage of your TAM you touch per month or per quarter, and how you refresh that and reprioritize that, so that like the downstream actions are like the best outcomes, you know? And so I think if you think of it like, okay, how do I send messages that I could send maybe like 1 to 2 DMs per quarter, let's say, and not have that look ugly? You know, I would do that differently, like as a rep in a company where I'm assuming I'm going to represent that for the next 3 years, versus if I'm like testing LinkedIn as a channel where I might like triple tap people to, you know, really milk this one campaign to see like what we can get out of it. Um, so yeah, that's the way I would generally think of it.
I have a thing. If you don't have anything to say, just don't send that message. It's that simple. So here is the point. If you have a big TAM and you have to use LinkedIn, don't do more than 3 messages. Why? Because obviously you have the limitations and you have a next person that you have to send those messages to. But if you have like a limited TAM that obviously goes with, I don't know, 5,000 people only or 5,000 decision makers only, then you can go up to 7 or 9 messages, but the delay should be bigger. So what that essentially means, sure, the first three
mm,
messages can go in a span of 7 days, but then the fourth message, if there is no response, should go after 15 days. And then the next one should go after like 7 days. So bigger delays because obviously chances of them checking on their profile increases. One practical advice, because we did this campaign and we failed miserably, and that this was the learning and increased our connection request and pipeline and conversations and everything in between. If you don't know where to start with the copywriting, right? On LinkedIn particularly, right? So take the solution, meaning the product or the service that you're selling on LinkedIn, and choose on 3 challenges that that problem actually solves for that particular ICP that you have chosen, right?
mm,
So
mm,
inside of the messages, let's just go with a simple message. Hey, thank you for accepting my connection request. As for me, like an
mm,
introduction, I actually help these people to actually solve this problem, right? I help
mm,
ICP
mm,
to
mm,
overcome on
mm,
problem
mm,
X.
mm,
Is this something that you faced? You don't need a social proof. You don't need to tell
mm,
who you've been
mm,
working with. You don't
mm,
need to go with, because I've worked with Amazon and
mm,
basically they
mm,
face the
mm,
problem. I mean, come on, now, that's $1 trillion company, has nothing to do with me. So pick on the challenge, go through the challenge through your messages. Message one, is this relevant? Message two, hey, we did a couple of cool gigs for companies like you. And
mm.
message three, here is a video testimonial about it. That's it.
Got it. Fair enough.
Challenge
Yeah.
first.
Another one, like one of the mantras I used to teach reps was like, not everyone can become a customer, but everyone can become a friend, and friends
Yeah.
buy from friends over time. You know, so Vibe, very aligned to like what you were saying, where it's like if you just maximize for like, and I also would do like maximize for kind of like utilitarian application initially. Over time, you can actually change that too. I literally just the other day, because like sometimes on LinkedIn, I'll see someone who I knew like used to be a prospect or something, and I'll just because I'm curious, be like, what have I sent this person before? And literally the other day, I
Mm,
went back and it was one that I'd sent them a bunch of walls of text that were terrible, and I was just like, and I literally sent a message. I was like, you know, 4 years later, not selling the same stuff, but just want to let you know I'm still thinking of you. Like, hope things have been well with the smiley face. They're not a prospect; it was just for fun, and they respond back, right? And it was like, and we had this nice little, you know, interaction. And it's like looking for the opportunity to do that or make people feel that way, I think, versus just like how to like grab them and like squeeze them and wrangle out what I want of it. It just like cascades over time, and you end up with all these like weird,
Connections.
pockets of like
No.
connections and stuff. Yeah, no, and it's fun too because then your life is just like engaging and having a good time and pattern interrupting where you think you can.
I
On
love
that
it.
matter, because we didn't touch base on this one, and it can be really, really important. It's because we've talked about like you should not be too salesy, too pushy, too
Mm,
upfront, and
mm,
calendar
mm,
links. But again, there is another side of that coin. There is because on LinkedIn you have this thing that it's either too soon, meaning sending a calendar
mm-hmm,
link inside
mm-hmm,
of a connection
mm-hmm,
request, but
mm-hmm,
it can have too late. Too late, meaning sure you can send a LinkedIn DM, hey V, how's the weather like in Sydney, or what's your best favorite restaurant?
mm-hmm.
Reply rates over the top. The question is, how do you turn that type of
Into an
conversation
actual
into
meeting.
let's do business together?
Mm,
That's sneaky.
mm,
That's like people will
mm,
actually hate you for it. So don't do it.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and you can
my,
tell too when they're like faking it, right? When someone's
Oh yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
"Hey," like I mean, you get it right from like the wealth advisors, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I'm connected with people in my network." And you're like, "Look, man, like you're just being dishonest." And I dislike the dishonesty, not that I'm not open to like having a quick little interaction with something I don't care about.
uh, I don't know whether who it was, and if it's Grant Cardone, I apologize, but they call it straight line selling. And straight line selling is because I used to, as a beginner when I did this about 15 years ago, I would do that. I'd become really good friends with everyone, and then I just learned that yeah, you're friends with people, but no one's gonna buy. So what's the point? Like that line is very important. So it's intention has to be pure, but you cannot be too pushy, but you can't also divert too away. So the straight line selling, if I can summarize the conversation over here, right? Let's just take an example where, okay, oh yeah, we're doing this in real time, right? Or maybe Kellen, we're doing this in real time, where I'm like, I connect with you, where I'm like, hey, I saw you're based out of San Francisco. Um, what do you think about the 49ers match? I have no idea if 49ers are
Yeah,
in San
yeah,
Francisco. Yeah. But Kellen, maybe respond back with something.
yeah, yeah. I'd be like, "Yeah, man, it's been a tough season. Seen better
Yeah,
years."
cool. I know what tough season feels like, and like I don't know about you as a small business that's growing, but with AI coming in, it's gonna get even more tougher. I'd love to know how you're doing your sales right now. Just curious. So the immediate thing is we've taken which was a casual conversation, and we're always trying to ring our way back in to the core conversation itself. If you go too far away, you can always talk about players and footballers and I don't even know the right sport. But at some point you have to wing your way back into the straight line selling, which is the whole point of that is you have like imagine it as like a line or a string, and you can go as far as you want, but remember, at some point, the further you go, the longer it's going to take you to come back. So you want to have that distance just enough where it's casual, but it doesn't become too casual. And you're now your best buddies, and you're not gonna get your friend to buy from you. You have to keep that in place. So there's some sort of commercial thing, and that takes time. I'm not one to recommend his books, but that was actually a pretty interesting one when I came up because I used to struggle with that a lot because I used to do a lot of LinkedIn outbound, and I just became friends with everyone. And
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
actually used to ask them to buy something, they would get so offended, saying, "Oh, so this is what you actually wanted me for, and how could you? I feel cheated." And
Yeah.
I had to really go back and recognize that there has to be, you need to have that line when you start stretching it too much and you become too buddies with them versus there's
yeah.
actually like an exchange rate over
You
here.
don't want to
So
get friend zoned. You can't get friend zoned
But
exactly,
too
yeah,
hard by
that's the one.
you
That's the one.
prospects.
you see,
That's
but
the
to
one.
your point, like I'm a big fan of using localization in outbound. So if you know for
Mm-hmm.
a fact that I don't know, Kellen is in San Francisco, I can tailor make that outreach that actually goes, hey, your outbound doesn't have to be, I mean, doesn't have to suck as much as the 79ers are sucking this season,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And now
yeah,
you're
Yeah,
thinking, well, cool.
yeah,
Or a great restaurant, like,
yeah.
listen, we have an outbound that's better than Tony's Pizzas
That
at
restaurant. Yep,
SF,
yep,
stuff
yeah.
like
yep,
that. So,
yep, yep. That's a
Or the
clever one
Golden
as
Gate
well.
tap room of LinkedIn automation.
Yeah, yeah. 49ers, 79ers, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah, we don't
cool.
talk about the 49ers this season, actually. No.
Oh, okay, my bad. I have no idea if
No,
that's
no, no, no. I'm
football or
just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
baseball
kidding.
or basketball for that matter. We love Manchester United, true football. Anyway, soccer as they call it.
Yeah.
Cool. We're already well stretched it. So if for those who are here, I mean, we've maintained a very strong group. There's like 250 people strong here, so I'm glad for that. We'll take one question. So if anyone's got a question, we'll take one question. You are more than welcome, Frank. We'll talk about this later. Um, If anyone's got a question, feel free to raise your hand up. You have the little reaction button. I know we've answered a lot of the questions, so maybe you don't have one. There's a react icon over there. You can raise your hand. If you have one, take 5 seconds. Great. We'll just take Willie. Willie, you won. You know the
Willie.
sprint. Right? Sweet. So we're gonna unmute you, mate, and we're gonna spotlight you. You got one question, either one per person or two questions for an individual. Let's go with that. Is that cool?
I think it's yeah, one question for the group. And
All right,
this is
even better.
regarding content calendars and when you post on LinkedIn and get reactions, what's the play in terms of interacting with people that are responding to a post of yours?
I'll go first. Not everyone who basically will react to that post is a matching ICP, so qualification and filtering has to happen. Usually it's done in Clay. You can use Trigify for the job. You can do a bunch of tools. So filtering starts first, right? Second is that the reason that they have interacted with your post, I mean, is just one part of the job. The second part is what you will find about them, right? So you can easily mention, I found you on my post and thank you for commenting and thank you for reaching out. But then again, you have to have a reasoning of why are you reaching out in their DMs, right? So and the reasoning can be really because, I mean, people do this. I've looked at your post that is essentially A, B, and C, streamline that into a 5-word sentence and basically say, do you really face this challenge right now, right? That's my play. That's what we are doing because we are heavy on content. And that's why I'm saying at the very beginning, tweak your content towards your ICP for two reasons, to attract the right audience and to have the social proof on your profile. So that's my answer.
I can take part. Actually, Kellen, if you want to jump in.
Sorry, what was the part two? I was commenting on something in the chat. I missed
It's
it.
so no, as in I think Willie's question is how do you handle content calendars and how do you handle overall interactions? Like someone's interacting with you, likes a post, leaves a comment. What do you
Mm,
do of a signal with that? And Ilya's had a good point saying you want to pre-qualify those, you pull that information out, pre-qualify them through Clay, you put a sequencer to see if they're even part of your audience or just like your stuff. What
yep.
do you do over here to actually get something out of that?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, the question is, it like kind of differs, right? Because I think a lot of what we do is like client campaign stuff, right? Where like we're not gonna have where we would probably on some sort of cycle, like let's say like find their posts, scrape the posts, find the people, qualify the people, and like enroll them to stuff. That's kind of like the evergreen, like automated, like clay centric way, right? If I was working with like a company that had like a bunch of reps that were posted, like Darren McKee is like a good friend of mine. He and I actually worked at we were AEs at the same company and left almost the same month actually. We had this call like right when we left on the beach that I'll never forget, just like early entrepreneur stuff. But if you guys don't know him, he has like 531 social. He's like a big LinkedIn poster. He does a bunch of like LinkedIn content coaching and stuff, and it's like lower volume, it's way more personal basically, and like I would coach people like you should be privy to who's engaging on your stuff, like what's your community, right? And you probably literally will do better basically figuring out like who's in your community and showing up for them in a way that they appreciate than trying to convert that one person, right? Because a lot of a lot of these like social networks are like nodes of channels of all sorts of stuff, right? And so instead of being like what is just the opportunity in front of me, like how do I get vibe off to show up to my call, I would be thinking more like how do I find the people that are like central nodes of what's going on and basically like, hey dude, appreciate you showing up, and maybe ask them something just like what stood out or like what do you like about the content or like you
Mm,
know like something
mm.
like that, and try to sincerely build something there. Because again, I would just assume that like give it 2 weeks of that. And then if you go, hey, by the way, like honestly, when you first hit my profile, like I was qualifying you and I just thought you
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
bunch
yeah.
of cool
You can
stuff
you can
going
be
on.
very
And
honest and it works really well.
a hundred
100%.
percent. Yeah,
A hundred
exactly.
percent.
And I
A
think people know
hundred
that
percent.
because people are so used to lying. Like people lie so
Yeah,
much. It's just like
yeah,
stop
yeah,
lying. Just be honest. Like it's
yeah,
literally okay to
yeah,
be like, Ilya, you're on my target account list. I was looking at your
yeah,
profile. Do I have it
yeah,
right that you
yeah,
X? Like I had a
yeah,
couple questions about
yeah,
Z, and
yeah,
that'll totally work.
yeah. One of my things that would work for me is like how bad, like when you reach with humility, and this is not you saying sorry, because I know that sort of there's this whole power tactic crap in
Sure.
sales, but which is like, how bad did my, and you just blame like an imaginary team member, how bad did my ex screw up in the research when they said that you were into, I don't know, buying golf carts, right?
Yeah.
And they will come back saying, no, they actually got it right. I was like, oh,
Yep.
cool. What do you think about this? And you start a whole conversation about that, and eventually be like, FYI, I asked because clearly that person has this expectation that I'm actually going to be able to jump on a call with you. So I think some fancy term for it, whatever it was called, which is it's decision leader led whatever selling, where you're sort of, I think Brex made this very popular back in the day, where they're like, hey, my CEO reached out to you, and there's like a
Oh
fake
yeah, yeah,
forwarded email,
yeah,
etc.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
like an actual, you know what I'm talking, right? It was
Yeah.
very famous back in like 2018 or 2017 or something of that sort. But yeah, cool. That was that. And I think if we were to come to my stance from Kellen and Ilya, I think really for me it was actually what they've said was honestly perfect. One thing I was gonna say, like a really silly thing, which is it's akin to dating, which is if you're that nerdy kid, if you know, whoever you interview, a girl or a guy just looks at you and like, oh, that's it, that's my in, and they're like, calm down, I just wanted to say hi,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
nothing else,
yeah.
I'm just being nice to you. And if you're trying to like get in a relationship with me, it's not gonna work. So the Ilya part, which is like you pre-qualify, and the Kellen piece, which is you do question led selling. That's the thing. Question-led selling is beautiful, which is just genuine curiosity. And the other thing I've learned, because surprise for everyone, like I actually did LinkedIn more than I did email when I started, and that's how I did Smartwriter and all that jazz, because I used to have like people in the Philippines writing personalized emails and all that jazz for us. But what I learned really, like what generally worked well, not going and wishing happy birthday to people. FYI, that does not work. But recognizing that don't listen to the bullshit that you get online in terms of coaches, probably even me, right? You cannot convert on LinkedIn in one day.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
unless you're got such a strong social pull where that person's like drawn in all that, oh wow, you messaged me, yes, I will buy from you, whatever you want. But what I've recognized is with LinkedIn, it's going to take a very natural, long time to convert. But when you close a deal on LinkedIn, you're looking at five figures.
V, I'm
That's
going to take
that's the
it a
difference.
step
Yes.
further because aside from you doing outbound, and really, if you start posting, you will get inbound DMs on LinkedIn. People will start
Yeah.
messaging. Even on an inbound DM, you will not close the deal the same day. Not on an
Oh,
outbound.
I was referring to an inbound, right? Like if I
Yeah,
posted on LinkedIn and someone
yeah,
commented on my stuff, I can't be
yeah,
like, "Hey, thanks for liking my shit, buy my shit,"
Yeah,
yeah.
right? It's like,
sure.
I think I do what Kellen does, which is, why did you think you agree? And I'd actually counter my point. I've done this in the past where, like, I actually have a post out right now about Anthropic and Claude, and there's already someone who's DM me saying, "I agree with you," and they're not a prospect, so I wouldn't respond. But someone who's a prospect responded back, I'd be like, you know what? I actually it's surprising that you agree because I read something else since I wrote that and I disagree with this fact. So it becomes a conversation at that point. Otherwise, it becomes that cesspool of, yes, I agree with your comment. Yes, you are right. I am aligned. Noted. You are so
Yeah.
true and we are so true. And then you're like, haha, okay, thank you. Bye. What do I do with this? But when you challenge your very narrative, then they get confused saying, oh, I was agreeing with this person. Now they're disagreeing with the thing they're saying. So it's a challenge. It's a discussion at this point. So it then becomes a conversation about what they're doing. Oh, I saw you using Anthropic. How's the accuracy of that? Oh, yeah, just I don't know if you know, but Smartly is built on ChatGPT, and we're trying to move to Anthropic. Have you tried something like Smartly recently? He's like, oh yeah, I use this other tool. What do they use? We don't know. Cool. Well, if you're ever interested, let me know because we've actually just moved to this new model over here, and that works well for us. But have a good day. Chat soon, right? And that's it. Kill that. Keep that in your comment. Like keep that in your little pool on the side. 2 weeks later, hey, I was just remembering this. That's the Kellen thing, right? Hey, I was just remembering this discussion today because I was talking to my team and we tried this thing out. I'd love to show you what we've done. It's so casual. It's just like a date, right? It's so casual, and they do not know that they just walked themselves into a demo.
Yeah.
And then that's when your true skill of trying to close the deal on a demo comes in. And if you bomb that, then I mean that's another conversation altogether. But hopefully that helps. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you guys. That was a lot of info. I tried to distill it, but if I captured it correctly, it's Trigify. Once you get some interactions, Trigify for capturing the intent, Clay to score to make sure that they're in your ICP. Then you want to go ahead and do some message based on whatever that content was. And then after that, we can put them into LinkedIn or Smart Lead campaigns. So that's like structurally more or less how to think through it, and then obviously like think through your timing and things like that. Did I capture the
If you
process?
want to do a pattern interruption, so if you find a LinkedIn post, then you will send them an email followed by LinkedIn,
Mhm.
right? because that's pattern interruption. That goes like, hey, thank you for engaging with my post. Now, yes, you might end up in a situation, how did you get my email? But I mean,
Yeah.
come on now, everyone is used to this these
Everybody
days.
has it.
But
Yeah.
a true pattern interruption would be cross-channel referencing. So on email, you reference something over LinkedIn, and then you follow up on LinkedIn on a HeyReach campaign. That would be the
Yeah,
best play,
Hmm.
honestly.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know
Yeah,
what
because
you're
the
selling.
outbound campaign. Oh, go ahead.
Go no, go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it.
I was gonna say yeah, because the outbound campaigns have been more or less straightforward, but the other like low-hanging fruit I think is like when your audience reacts to what you're posting. And I was trying to figure out how to put both Smartlead and
Hey, Reach.
HeyReach
HeyReach. Yeah.
into motion when we're starting to get some inertia on the things that are being posted for my clients. I'm an agency, by the way, by Bob. Like
Yeah.
I work
I was just about to
with
ask you. Yeah,
businesses.
I was just about to ask you, right? Because if you're an agency and you're doing outbound, it's one of the things where I think I'm just going with a pattern over here. So please forgive me if I'm being redundant, but it's the same humility-based selling, which is if you reach out to them, and I think Ilya called it out, right? Um, hey, did I get your email right? So what you're
Yeah.
trying to show to them over here is you got prospecting skills. You can pull out an email address. You know how to get that through, right? And then you send them a message saying, "Hey, I sent you an email. Did I get your email right?" So that
Oh, yeah.
becomes sort of a bump follow up, right? And but you're doing unconscious selling. You're pre-qualifying yourself to tell them
Yeah.
that I know how to prospect. I know how to get your attention. And then if they ever say, "Why am I better than you?" I'm like, I don't. That's where I become, but maybe a bit sneaky, a bit cheeky, maybe a bit ego comes in. We're like, well, I've got you on a call, haven't I? And you said you didn't believe in this. So if I can get this happening for you, I can guarantee you I can get other people, right? And that it is tongue in cheek, but it does work, right? Because in the end, I think Kellen raised this is with sales, you have to have the level of like confidence. You need to have that presence. You need to know that. And if you're not able to push that in, your audience is not going to buy from you. So, but cross selling, absolutely noted. And I think what Kellen said with respect to making sure you can actually reference conversations, you can build that persona, and then maybe in that discussion and that call with them, people do this really well. um, when you're about to jump on a call with them or even do a demo, whatever it is, I would literally go to their profile and find out like every connection that I've got with that person and just randomly name throw them. And you get two answers. They'll say, I don't know, or they'll say, oh, yeah, I know them. And I've shot myself in the foot. I'm like, oh, I know James. And he's like, I have no clue who James is. And he's a LinkedIn connections. So I would ask and be like, I saw you connected to James. Is that one of those awkward connections where you've never met them and you don't know what they're like, that they put nail polish in their feet? Or have you, is this just like a online whatever? And they'll be like, oh, these are the things you can do to sort of just make it less awkward for yourself. And then if they don't know James, then you're like, yeah, total weirdo. Or I love James's nail color because I
But
did that same too with mine as well. Or alternatively, yeah, he's an equal connection to me online. I've never met him in person, and then you just ride into another conversation. But hopefully that helps.
I mean, I'm going to just add something here. Be
Yes,
bold.
yes.
Be bold, be confident in terms of what you can deliver because that's you. I mean, one example would be we did like an RB2B integration, stuff like that. And I basically the copy because the anonymization, LinkedIn account found, sent to HeyReach, connection request. And the first message goes, hey, this is an automated message. I've noticed that you're on my pricing page. I wanted to show you the capabilities of the tool. Let me know if you want a Loom video to replicate this playbook. I mean, who
Yep,
says that this is an automated message? Unless
yep.
you basically, like, because that's my use case, but it was a bold one. And I mean, shit ton of conversions actually happened out of that one. So yeah.
Sweet. Hopefully that helped. Um,
Oh yeah.
cheers, man. Well, thank you. One thing I can just say, I think so talking about this, like I love talking about these patterns. One was someone actually asked me this. I purposely make spelling mistakes in every single post of mine. Um, People love correcting you. It's just
Yeah.
like a human nature thing. They love correcting you. Yeah, it's baiting. It's 100% baiting. And they're getting angry. It's like, oh, you couldn't even spell this right. You couldn't do. I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'm getting impressions because of this. And I'm like, I consciously make spelling mistakes. I make grammar mistakes on purpose just because you will comment saying, did you mean this? I'm like, yes, I did. Now let's talk about this. So for everyone over here, thank you for joining, Ilya. It was an absolute pleasure. Is there anything that you wanted to cover with respect to HeyReach as a product, what you have to do? Kellen, anything about your services before we end up on the end of this call?
None for me really. Just thanks, guys. This is
Okay,
fun. Good to do this. Ilya, all you.
Yeah. This was probably the most proactive, interactive workshop that I've been on. It was a true pleasure. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. Great chat, guys. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Well, everyone, thank you. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the week ahead. And like I said, unfortunately for all of you, there's three consistencies in life that will always
Oh yeah, yes.
stay
Wait, wait. Someone
forever.
said, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a giveaway. Someone said, what about the offer? Did you have like a
Oh
giveaway or
yeah.
something?
Oh
Did
yeah.
I? No, I did not.
You did have a giveaway.
You cut me completely. Okay, listen. Since we are going to share a recording for everyone,
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
figure something out and I will pass it on. Okay.
All right, cool. That was kind of what I asked over there. I didn't want to like, so I was like,
Oh,
if
my
you
bad.
said nothing, I'm like,
No
cool, I don't
worries.
hear it. That's cool. We'll get it
It's
done
all
for you.
good.
We'll cool. My
It's all
bad,
good.
my bad. But awesome. Well, everyone, thank you for this. 3 guarantees in life: taxes, death, and office hours on Smartlead every other week, or if not every week on Thursday. Have a beautiful day. Stay connected. Do outbound. And by the way, check out GTM Cafe. Reach out to Kellen. Reach out to Ilija. Check out HeyReach. We'll send out information to everyone over here. We had over 750 people registered, 300 who have attended. Every single one of you is going to get this recording. It will show up soon. Have a beautiful day. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.